How's it going, everybody? Graydon here with the LPM podcast on the Last Pack Magic channel. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode. Today's topic is going to be one-of-ones. We are going to talk everything to do with one-of-ones. They're a topic in the hobby that come up a lot and then you don't hear about because they're so rare, and they're a bit of a crown jewel of people's collections, or there's something that's completely unobtainable. So today we have a guest on who's going to help answer some questions about one-of-ones, the importance that they are in his collection. And without further ado, I'm going to bring him on right now. Ryan.
Hey, how's it going, man?
What's going on, buddy? How are you today?
Good. Yourself?
I'm good. Thank you for making time to come on the channel today and talk about one-of-ones.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it. Yeah, it's a very it's a topic that I enjoy, so this will be a good discussion.
Yeah. So you are. Let's start out with who you collect and how long you've been collecting.
Okay. Yeah, I collect Juggernaut exclusively. Well, I shouldn't say exclusively. I do collect another smaller character, but it's a Colleen Wing. I've just started really kind of diving into some of her stuff. It's very niche and there's not a lot out there. But I'm mostly known in the community for collecting Juggernaut. I probably have the most extensive collection of his cards out there that exists. I started collecting, I want to say probably around, I don't know, I graded my first Juggernaut card, which is a 95 annual card, somewhere in the slightly before 2020. I can't remember exactly when it was, but and I've been slowly collecting since that point in time. So
right on. I always find it so dangerous to try to weigh in on where a collector stands with it having the top collection, because in my experience with this, there's always a bigger shark, and they're out there like,
oh yeah,
in the field, they're out there.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I just recently had this conversation with somebody else, but I think that unless there is that shark that you're talking about somewhere hidden away that no one knows about, I'm probably pretty close to the top, but
that guy or girl is out there just stewing right now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Right on. So so a lot of your collection is graded.
Yeah, I'm a big, that's a bit of a awkward conversation topic in our hobby. It seems some people are, really pro grading. Some people are just completely against it. I'm a person that firmly believes in grading. I think grading adds a little bit of everything in multiple categories, I guess, in a sense. It adds value to some degree if you're looking for that. It also adds a better display. I think personally, I think the cards that have grades and have high grades display better. They look better. They pop off a little bit better whenever you're looking at them. So yeah, I mean, I grade everything. I'm a firm about that. That's the way I've always wanted to display my collection, and it's important to me to know, even if a card is a low serial number, et cetera, things like that card is in good shape.
Right. So when having a graded card being in a collection, I see a very feisty kitten in the background. It's going to be really hard for that cat to eat that card when it's graded and protected in that slab, right?
Exactly. That's yeah. Especially whenever it's in a case like the one you can see behind me as well. It's hard for her to get into there. But yeah, exactly. It adds a good layer of protection for the cards. It's really secure in there, and I think it's probably as of now the most optimal way to really take care of your stuff. So
cool, man. So today's topic that we're going to talk about is one-of-ones. Okay. What's a numbered card? First of all, explain to us what a numbered card is.
Numbered card would be different sets will have different parallels and inserts and things like that. A lot of the time, those cards have a serial number on them. That means that card is numbered to whatever the highest number and the serial number is. For example, if a card has 81 out of 100, that means there's only 100 of that card that exists, and you have the copy that came off the line in the 81st position. One-of-ones are when there is a parallel or insert of that version of that card that is the only one that exists. A lot of the time, these sets will have some sort of unique foiling or unique characteristics to the one-of-ones that make them stand out from everything else, so that you can identify them very easily. But they are the crown jewels. They are the pack inserts for most sets. They're the very, very top of what you're looking for whenever it comes to these sets, as far as case hits and things like that.
What a great definition of it. For people who are watching, if you're new to the hobby, if you want to jump back to these answers, these are really, really good answers. And if you need an explanation for any of this stuff, Ryan is going to drop some knowledge on us here. So really, that's a really detailed answer. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
How many one of ones are in your collection? As far as how many one of ones do you have in your collection?
2. I have 2 for the character that I collect.
And is there a title for those parallels?
Yeah. So one thing that's kind of unique to our hobby, especially the Marvel cards, is we have sets that have kind of annual or semi-annual releases. And some of those sets stay true to that same parallel throughout their different releases. As they move forward, the crown of our hobby is the Marvel Masterpieces sets, and those one of ones from those sets are all referred to as red spectrum one of ones. That means it has red foiling on the one of one inserts, and everybody refers to them just as red spectrums most of the time, even as opposed to one of ones, because everyone in our hobby really kind of knows what that means. But that just means that they are one of one cards. But different sets, like Fleer Ultra X-Men had a release. They had gold PMGs that were one of ones in their set, and then they had red canvas foil was their name of their base set one of ones in that set. So it's a little different than Red Spectrum, but the idea was sort of the same. But you can see in different sets that you'll have, sometimes it'll be a gold PMG will be the one of one. Sometimes it'll be something else that's got a slightly different title. The Midnight Suns release recently, I don't think there's any, it might be gold spectrum or something.
It's black.
Black. Okay. Yeah. So different sets are going to have different, nomenclature a lot of the time, but, for Masterpieces, the red spectrum is notable for the consistency of, 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022. It's always been red spectrum throughout the entire time. So
I love that there are titles, given to these one of ones instead of just calling it the one of one. I think it's awesome that it's got a name.
Yeah, I think so too. And I like that Masterpieces has stuck with the same name as well, and they're not been, kind of like flagships or we're seeing that a little bit with the preserved ambers in this most recent set, but for the most part, they've stayed true to the base set name and stuff like that, and I would like to see that be the same in other sets moving forward. I think it's a little classier, and it obviously adds less confusion for us as collectors, and it doesn't make it as complicated to try to figure out what's the name of this one of one, etc. So
right. Do you classify a sketch card as a one of one?
No, and I also, I know this is another kind of sensitive topic as far as people's perception of it. I don't think plates should be considered one of ones either, or true one of ones, I guess, because there's 4 of them.
Let's jump to that then. Let's come back to the sketches. Let's talk about plates. So you don't feel as though plates are a one of one?
They are, but I don't I think one of one should be reserved for something that there's truly only one copy and one parallel of. I know that's a little loosely defined there, because if you have a red spectrum masterpiece of a card, it looks exactly the same as the base, except for it's got red foiling. But with the plates, we've kind of over time, there's always 4 for a base card. If you have a what if or whatever, you'll have 4 for that as well and stuff. But I personally think plates should be numbered to 4, 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, and so on. It just doesn't. I think by having plates try to be one of ones, it takes away from what a one of one it should be. It should truly, a one of one to me should be, there's only one of them. And I can carry that over into sketch cards as well. I don't think that, yes, that sketch is unique within its own right to be the only sketch that looks like that. It is a one offer from the artist, if you will. But I don't think that, I think that that's a bit of a marketing ploy, and it was a way to try to get more money into the, to be fair, it worked, for the most part. But I just don't think that, for plates and or sketches, it should be that title should be reserved for only the super high end. And I think that they tried to incorporate too much into that super high end.
I kind of want to back you into a corner a little bit on this topic.
Okay.
Because I have the exact opposite point of view about the printing plates. And I really do see them as a one of one, because there is one of those colors for one of those base cards or variant covers for one of those sets. So for me, that really hammers home there is only one of the cyan, one of the magenta, one of the yellow, one of the black. So for me, just by definition, it hits all of the criteria personally. I feel like it hits all of the criteria. And in saying that, I think that calling the one of one red spectrum, I wish they would stick with the insert name and allow the one of ones to be the plate. My personal opinion.
Okay. As
So
in, like, you would just call it the red spectrum then in that scenario? Is that what you're saying? But whenever you said the insert name or whatever?
Exactly. So for myself, I would just have that as a one of one. But I like the idea that the printing plates are to me a one of one. So it's really
Okay.
interesting to hear your perspective on it. I like that you have a different opinion because I feel like your opinion of it is actually the popular opinion in the hobby about printing plates.
Yeah, I've sort of heard that as well. I think I've heard that opinion from other people and stuff as well. I've heard less of what you just said. So,
Yeah,
but it's cool that
I
we have
agree
the
with you about that.
yeah.
Let's talk about sketches as being one of ones. So sketch cards are something that have been in the hobby for a while. Obviously, a sketch card is an original piece of art
Yeah.
done by an artist. So in calling it a one of one original piece of art, why don't we talk about this? What are your feelings about sketch cards in general for your collection?
Okay, so I'm kind of like coming up kind of on like a collecting man, what's the right word for this? Um like I'm getting close to where I have every card that's ever been made for Juggernaut, right?
I
So
would call that a master collection.
okay, all right, yeah. So I'm getting close to. I mean, there's certain cards that I'll probably never be able to get my hands on, just because of some of the cards I don't consider the one of ones in remaining of the ones that I'm missing. If I'm able to get my hands on those, that'd be great. But there's about 6 cards that are not one of ones. Well, that's a little bit more than 6, but between 6 to 10 cards that I don't have or whatever. Um, but in saying that, I've recently have started diving into sketch cards a little bit. I've never really been like super keen on sketch cards, and I might be somebody who's too critical about it. But my reasoning for never really jumping into it previously was because I think there's a lack of consistency. I mean, art is subjective. Art is always going to be subjective.
Yeah.
But I've always just like I rarely, at least for the character that I collect, right? I've rarely seen a sketch that I've just been like over the moon about. There's some that's pretty good. That's all right. I like that. This and this and this that I think are like kind of okay, if you will. I rarely have seen something that I've just been like, completely just struck by,
Right.
just super impressed. Like, man, like I have to have this. I think that I wasn't really collecting back in the earlier times. Whenever, from what I understand, like there were sketches in like every box, in some of the
The
early,
Rittenhouse products had a sketch in every box. Yeah.
yeah, and like I don't know. If we're trying to make sketch cards and we're going to label them as one of ones and like these unique pieces of art and things like that, like I think that there should be like more of a like more like I think they should be like super rare. Not quite as rare as a one of one, but I think there should just be very, very few sketch cards, and there should be like more select. They should be more selective about their artists and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Maybe make the list about half of what they are or something like that. I don't know. I mean, of course, I'm not it's a money making product, right? So it's like they're going to do what's best in their best interest and stuff like that. I'm just saying for like my taste, I would much rather see one, for example, I'd much rather like go into eBay and then like see a sketch card of my character pop up like maybe 4 or 5 times a year.
Right.
I would rather see things like that, as opposed to the way I feel like we almost have an oversaturation of sketch cards nowadays.
So I think if that is your desire, I think you're about to get it because from the pack odds with sketch cards now, such as like Midnight Suns, they're
Yeah.
really starting to reduce the amount of sketch cards that are in boxes. Like
Okay. Cool.
the rarity is definitely they're definitely moving in that direction of what you just described.
Okay, cool. That's good. That's good to hear. I haven't really paid too much to Midnight Suns. I only really I look at the checklist or like try to like see the checklist right before the stuff's going to come out and see if there's going to be cards in that are going to be pertaining to like my collection or my interest. And if there's not, then I kind of like stay away from that product for the most part. It's just it's a money saver. It's a better. I'm not going to be pulling anything that's like going to be like staying with me, in those situations, So it's like it's more optimal for me to just stay away from those sets. But that's good to hear, though. I'm glad to hear that sort of. I hope that stays true moving forward.
So with you saying that your sketch cards that you're interested in are few and far between, let's call it.
Correct. Yeah, and I also would be more interested in APs. That's something that I'm working on. For the most part. I mean, and again, this might be you might deal with this yourself, and this is something that I have talked to a few other character collectors about in just like little small increments. Is like I haven't seen like that many phenomenal Juggernaut sketches, right? And like there's some characters where like I don't know. I'd have to try to think of a character off the top of my head.
There are no bad Spider-Man sketches. There's
Well, yeah. That's a
yeah.
great example. Yeah, it seems like you just get more. Like every time I see a Spider-Man sketch, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. It's just I've seen some just absolute dumpster Juggernauts out there. And like.
So my question leading into this then, coming on the other side of this conversation,
Sure.
is if you're ending up with these Juggernaut sketches that are very specific to you, like you're like, this is a great sketch.
Yeah.
Do you consider that a one of one? If it's
No.
if it's even rarer because you like it that much that you'll collect it. So you
The only ones I would consider one of ones would be like a Fred Ian.
Okay.
That would be like, just because there's no, I really respect. I just came into this knowledge like fairly recently because I just started doing the sketch stuff. That they do no commissions, they do no APs unless you like win a specific giveaway or whatever that they're doing. But like normally you can't just commission them to do a piece or whatever. So that to me makes it that much more interesting for character collectors because like as far as I know, there are 2 Freddy and Juggernauts that have ever been done. I could be wrong about that, but those are the only ones that I've been able to track down. And I'm pretty thorough on my research. So
Right.
like, it makes those like that much more special in the sense that like you might see a character done by them so few times that those pieces would become extremely rare. And obviously like I consider that them to be one of the top, if not the top of the sketch card world.
Freddie, and fantastic work. And
Yeah. So maybe those I would consider like one of ones in my mind or be able to justify that better, but that's probably, close to that's like probably the only. It'd be like really unique situations where I would consider that way, if that makes sense.
Let's lead into a bit more of a conversation about one-on-ones here with population count on graded cards. So when you get a card graded, there's we've had a podcast about this with Michael Salter from Cool Cards. So when you have a graded card, there's a population for that grade. If you have a pop 1 of a PSA 9 of a Juggernaut card, how does that weigh into your one-of-one collection?
I've never even really thought about that, honestly. I never really considered that being like a one-of-one sort of situation. There's plenty of cards that I have in my collection that are like pop 1 like that are like, PSA 10, PSA 9 or whatever. But I've never even given that much thought. I wouldn't really consider that like one-of-ones though.
Is that population count important to you?
No.
Cool.
No, not at all. Yeah, not for me. Yeah, not for me at all. No, I don't look at it as far as yeah, not for me. Not for me. I don't look at. I don't really evaluate that too much. So.
All right. So this has been really good. I think like what I'm trying to lead into here, what I'm trying to get at is that like there are red spectrum one-of-ones, but there are a lot of things. There are a lot of items in the hobby that there's a scarcity to, and it's a challenge to assign a number to them. Sketch cards, printing plates are numbered, but there's a debate about how much of a one-of-one they are. Population counts within PSA and the other grading companies. So there's a lot of areas in the hobby where they have tried to assign numbers to it, and there are hard numbers to it. So it's interesting to hear different collectors' opinion on which solid numbers are important to them in the one-of-one community.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought up that PSA and like the other grading companies pop counts in the sense that I literally have never even like thought about that or heard about that. As far as I know, that people will try to use that for like boost sale prices and things like that. That you'll see it on eBay and things like that. This is a pop 1, pop 1 card. But yeah, I've never really given that much thought. I'm sorry that I hadn't, because I would have a much stronger opinion on it if I kind of thought about it. But that's very interesting that some people do. But yeah, as far as the sketch cards and stuff like that, I mean, it's going to be, different from person to person. I think, with it being art, it is sort of subjective even in that sense to people, as to whether or not they, believe that it truly is a one-of-one.
Oh, I agree completely. And, don't be sorry. These topics that we bring up on the podcast are meant to spark debate and further knowledge. So it's really great when we have people who are watching and who are guests that are actively learning all of this. So it's the whole point of doing this. And something I've found from my experience with the hobby is that the more I learn, the more my opinion of everything changes. So my opinion from when I began character collecting, because I was always a set collector. I've
Yeah,
started
yeah.
collecting since like 2012.
Okay.
And my opinion about collecting and certain items in the hobby have changed a lot over the last 2-3 years, basically based on how the hobby's changed and the things that I've learned. You know what I mean? Is that the same
Yeah.
for you? Like, does your opinion change in this world a lot, or is it pretty consistent?
Um, I would say mine's pretty consistent, to be fair.
Mhm.
I pretty like have like I mean like to be I think whenever you're a character collector for the most part, I mean like for example, like you had Miles on here the other day, this the Submariner collector. Like he has set rules that he follows with his collecting, right? Like he talked about like, I do all the parallels I can, one plate per,
Yeah.
variants or whatever, one sketch. Like whenever you're a character collector, from what I've interpreted for the most part, I think that there are more set rules that you kind of follow and live by, so that it keeps your direction of your character collecting kind of
Yeah.
linear. Because if you start to deviate from that, you can create problems for yourself. You can create
My,
these.
Miles is a role model of mine for character collecting.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's got some great stuff, man.
He's an incredible collector, incredible guy, but also just has it so dialed.
Yeah,
A lot of what I've learned about character collecting, I learned from Sketch Card Hive, the Sketch Card
yeah,
Hive,
yeah.
Fausto. And Miles is one of those guys where when I started to learn more about it, I was like, wow, like I have so much to learn.
Yeah, yeah, Miles. I mean, whenever it's we'll get into it later at some point about my story and stuff like that. But Miles is someone who like I respect the dedication he has to it, because he's very similar to myself. Like there's very few people out there that like have gone to the lengths that I think that we've gone to.
Mm.
I mean, some of the stuff that you're picking up now and stuff, for the stuff that I've seen from your collection, I tip my hat to and stuff. Like
Thank you.
there's a definitely like a different, and I don't want to sound derogatory to anyone who's not on this level, because it's not like that. It's just like there's some people that are like driven, so driven to find what they need and get what they need for their collection, that I think that just naturally elevates the status of the collection a little bit, and you can tell instantly whenever you're looking through somebody's stuff. I think, and Miles is definitely one of those people.
I think that Sketch Card Hive does a really good job of outlining the different levels of participation, I like to call it,
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
where like if you're a character collector, there's like 4 tiers, and there's nothing wrong with there's no hierarchy in those tiers,
Correct.
but there's
Yeah,
the level of involvement, like exactly like you were saying. So there's
yeah,
people,
yeah.
you can pick one of those four, and if it fits your personal collecting style, it's fantastic to be able to pick a category and kind of go with it, have an outline, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the most important thing, right? Is like you have to set boundaries for yourself, and like you have to set like an outline, and like you have to have a plan of
Yeah.
what you're gonna do. Because if not, you can just, it's like, and the thing that something that like I thought Miles was gonna bring up in the character collecting episode that he didn't really actually say, but I know that he thinks this is like there's always something that's gonna pop up. Right. There's always things that it's a constant conveyor belt where stuff is always coming up. There's always something that's available. I mean, it's not, that there's like the exceptions of the, like the of fives, of tens, things like that you have to jump on, right away, or you
Yeah.
may never get that chance again. Right. But like for the most part, like for what you're doing, like it's always a conveyor belt. There's always a new sketch card popping up. There's always this popping up. There's always that popping up. So it's like, if you don't like establish like a plan for yourself, and just like, if you just like buy everything that's coming up, you're just gonna, you're putting yourself in just a really rough hole. So like you need to have like your limitations and like your own expectations for what you're trying to do. So
For one of ones in your collection, how do you feel about grading a one of one?
oh man, this is we off air briefly talked about this a little bit today. That topic got brought up in one of the Facebook groups recently. There was a big discussion about that. I have a very different opinion from, I guess, from the rest of the population out there. And I wish that I had like more data on it, because like I've made mental notes about people that I also see grading one of ones. Luis Alonso, he grades his one of ones.
Oh yeah. What's up,
There's
Lewis?
several. Yeah, shout out to him. I never actually spoke to the guy at all. I just have just seen him online.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he seems like a really good guy, but I've never had a conversation with him. Whatever he does, I've seen some great. Justin Spidey Hits has had some graded. But yeah, there was a post about that recently in the group, and it was like basically, it was a person who's been a collector for a long time. I hope it's okay to talk about this on here. I don't know if you don't mind. I'm not trying to like stir up anything or.
Dude, this is your
Okay,
time.
cool. Yeah.
We're
And
asking you. We want to know what you think.
all right, cool. Yeah, and they were saying basically the gist of it is like, it was angled. The post was angled as like a, this is to educate people that are like not as deep into the hobby as some of the others. Don't grade your one of ones. They're not going to increase resale value. It's not a good thing. It's a bad look for the hobby. All this stuff, and I'm just like looking at this, just like, dude, like I just thought it was just I don't want to say a load of garbage, because I think that the reality of the financial aspect of it is very true. If you grade a certain one-on-one card and you're trying to flip it or sell it and it gets like a 7 or something like that, then I think that could possibly depreciate the value.
Okay.
So like I do understand like from that angle of it and stuff like that, but like I tried to like play, as someone who's like a hardcore character collector, I tried to like, speak my opinion on those things, which is like, for example, like I have this big display back here where like everything in it's graded, and then I have this one of one that's just not graded. It's just gonna stick out like a sore thumb.
It's about the slab and the consistency of display.
Well, it's about a few things. I got a few different points that I'd like to bring up on this. So for one thing, it is for the display. It looks better. It's more uniform. It creates consistency in my display, and I like that. Something else that I think that I tried to talk about in that a bit that did not really get any traction, or people seem to be able to wrap their head around, was like, I'd like to know that I myself, as well as maybe who had the card before me or whatever, has taken good care of that card. It's different if you have a card, right? That like, and no offense to Luis Alonso here. I want to use this as an example because I think it's important. Like he either pulled or he got a Shuri Red Spectrum 101 from Marvel Masterpieces 2022, and the card came back as a 6. Now, I'm sure to him, the grade doesn't matter, which is totally fair. You know what I mean? But like in the future, if someone is going to try to, it goes to somebody else in the future, he goes to sell it, things like that. Like there is a possibility that that card doesn't get close to what he paid for it because of that low grade, right? And it might have come right out of the pack like that. You know what I mean? Given the way masterpieces are and how they grade and stuff like that, with the thickness of the cards and stuff. But like, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. But that as a collector, I know where I'm going with this. Like I myself would be bothered by that. It would bother me to know that like it's so unfortunate that this card it's like this gem of this set was either in the production process or the packaging process, the storaging process, the shipping process was damaged in this way, and that's outside of some people's control and stuff like that. But like for me, like I whenever I got the first one that I got, I wanted to know what kind of condition that card was in. To me, it's important. I do think that even though you're not comparing that card, it's always going to be the pop one if it's a one of one, right? You're not comparing it to other versions of that card, but it is for me important to know that that card itself has been taken care of in good condition.
Okay, so I hear your point about it wanting to have a graded one of one graded for it being encapsulated and for display purposes.
Right.
But if you're saying that getting a low grade on it affects the value, that just doesn't quite line up with feeling that it's a necessity to grade. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but I'm not saying, okay, so like, ask me that question again. Sorry, or ask me the question again.
So with grading one of ones, we've talked about that you like it as an encapsulation, as a display.
Right, correct.
But is there a contradiction in your opinion about it when it gets a low grade, is what I'm asking?
No, I mean, like, I don't know where the contradiction would be in the sense that, like, what I was saying at the beginning of that was, like, I do think that the person who made that Facebook post about it that was saying to not grade those cards, I do agree with their point of it could possibly depreciate the value of your card if you get a low grade on it, if you're trying to sell it, right?
I see. Yeah.
That's what, if it's something that is going to stay in your collection forever, and you are not even remotely interested in selling it,
right?
Then like I do think that is totally justifiable, which is something that same person on that Facebook group was still arguing against, which I thought we'll get to that in a second, or I'll talk about that in a minute. But I was saying that in the sense of like, if I was in Lewis's situation where that card came back as a 6, I would crack that card and I would just send it somewhere off to be authenticated, so that the possibility of that in the future for whoever does go to sell that card next? I know that's probably kind of like a little.
No, I like
but
that. That's one of the things I'm actually wondering about. So with the topic of grading one of ones, do you think that it's a for encapsulation purposes, it's better to just send it away for authenticity purposes?
Well, now here's my exact stance on it. If you want my exact definitions on it, and stuff like that, I think there should be like a bell curve whenever it comes to grading one of ones, in my opinion, to some degree. Whereas, like, for base cards, things like that, 10 is the, I mean, I don't know if necessarily a bell curve is the right word that I'm trying to say, but like, I think an 8 or above on a one of one is totally acceptable.
Okay.
Like, whereas some people like wouldn't think, why are you grading a card that would get an 8, etc. There's some people that view that have that sort of stance on stuff. But I think, with the rarity of the card and the, with the way some of these cards are produced, and like, like we don't have as like, with some of the modern sports cards and stuff like that, you see like tons of cards getting 10s and stuff like that now, comparatively to us, where it's kind of few and far in between where you see 10s. I think, at least from like PSA and BGS, I think CGC is kind of throwing those out like candy right now, but that's a different topic of conversation. But yeah, so like, in my opinion, like, I think an 8 or above on a one-on-one is like respectable, if that makes sense. So like, for me, if I was to get one to come back in the future or whatever, that I had a Juggernaut card come back and it was like a 6 or a 7 or something like that, then for my own personal taste, and for the possibility of, if somebody moves that after I die or whatever and stuff like that, I would have the card just authenticated, so it doesn't run the risk of possibly deterring the value of that card a bit.
I got you. This is going to lead me into my next question here for you.
Okay.
I think that every character collector has a little bit of a soft spot for error cards. Do you collect error cards?
I don't. No, that's not something that I chose to include in my. It would, that would be too. I already have some. Hang on just a second. I have somebody at my front door. Can you?
So you just had a knock at the door there. Welcome back. We'll just chat real quick. So error cards aren't a part of your collection?
No, they're not. No, I just never really have had, the fascination with that sort of thing. I know some people like really, really love it. But yeah, for me, it's just like, I already have some like really like high or complicated, we'll say, expectations for my collection. And like, that would just be adding another layer that would, I'm already trying to do something that like I think is very complicated and challenging. So like, I don't want to like overdo it for myself. And I think trying to include that in my process, even for something that doesn't really appeal to me that much, would convolute stuff for me and make things like super, super foggy. So
when you see an error card that is a really unique error, do you consider it a 101?
Another one that I haven't given a lot of thought to.
This is well, you know what? Well, you can answer that another time. You put some thought into it.
I would say my initial response would just be no. Like, if it's just like a base card error that's got like a crimp error, things like that on it, I wouldn't consider that a one of one now.
Right. Okay, great. Ryan, we're gonna be wrapping up here. I really appreciate you coming on and answering some of our questions. Is there anything that you want to leave the people with there? Is there somewhere that they can find you and follow your journey with this?
You can find me on Instagram at supersize_Rye. I'm not one of those people that shies away from letting you know what I'm looking for, what I want. I know there's a little bit of that in our hobby. Some people like have differing opinions on how that should work. But if you have a big Juggernaut card, or you have something that I'm looking for, you're going to see my posts in the groups, in Discord, on Instagram about stuff I'm looking for. Please feel free to hit me up. I'm willing to pay for the cards that I'm looking for. Ryan Beckner on Facebook, in the Facebook groups. So if anybody has any questions or any, wants to debate about the one-on-one topic as to whether or not you should get them graded, feel free to hit me up.
Ryan, really grateful for you joining. I'm going to leave a link to your Instagram in the description of this video. I really recommend that you follow Ryan on Instagram, especially if you're a character collector. There are cards that you get to see in other people's collection that might inspire your own. And for myself, I follow lots of character collectors, and I love seeing the stuff that they post, because it gives me a direction for my own, or it gives me an inspiration that I possibly hadn't thought of before. So please go over there and follow Ryan. If you like this type of content that we're making and you like the podcast, please like the video. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the video, and we're going to catch up with you guys another time. Ryan, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Everybody who's watching, thanks so much for joining. We'll catch up soon, guys. Take care.